La pace sia con tutti voi.
Joining me now with his analysis and perception of this American Pope, Leo XIV, is the President Emeritus of the Acton Institute, Father Robert Sirico. Welcome back.
Good to be with you.
Now, Father, before I jump into your thoughts on this papacy, give me a reflection on the world stopping for a moment and gazing upon this papal conclave and the Church itself. What does it say about the influence of Catholicism?
Well, it sure was better than the movie, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the sets were more authentic.
Well, the 11th act, the payoff was a heck of a lot better.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. No, I think the drama, if I may use that term, of Catholicism and the backdrop, the sets that are so authentic. You know, they're not just Potomkin villages. All of this represents a certain flow of history that has an inevitability and an authenticity that is undeniable.
Yeah. Was an American on your radar, or did you believe, like the rest of us, no American could ever get elected?
Well, I was asked that several times, and I said no American could be elected because we are the most powerful and the richest country in the world, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But I did say if they got into trouble, I could see them going for O'Malley because O'Malley was the least American. I didn't have Prevost on my radar, and he would be older, and so this would give the new cardinals time to get to know one another. But that beautiful analysis went right out the window.
So why do you think they did elect this particular American, Robert Prevost?
I think because he has both the genius of America, the organizing genius, the communicative genius.
Practicality.
Practicality, probably has a good, sophisticated understanding of finance and markets and management, that kind of thing. But also he has that personal warm touch, the best of Francis in terms of people and vulnerability, human vulnerability. And I think if he can bring those two characteristics together, we're in for a very, very interesting pontificate and a hopeful one.
Tell me what you thought about the optics of the scene we saw right here just yesterday. When the new Pope emerged, he greeted the crowd, and he came out with Benedict XVI's crozier and that ornate mozzetta, with that red cape, which was akin to Benedict XVI's debut, not Francis's, who had none of that.
Right.
The minimalism of Francis. Is that over?
It looks like it is. It was a striking symbol, and I know a lot of people who wouldn't follow church stuff the way we do would miss it, but I pointed that out to several people. He knew this was going to be the first time the cardinals were going to see him as Pope in the Sistine Chapel, because when we first came out, and then, of course, on the balcony. Now, I think the second shoe will drop when we hear if he decides to reside in the Apostolic Palace, which I predict he will.
Yeah, I think he will too. You know, to show I certainly respect my predecessor, but...
Yeah. And I think there's going to be a lot of that over the course of this pontificate. He's going to affirm his predecessor and then deepen and
deviate and move in his own direction, which every pope has to.
Sure.
Father, tell me, how do you think this American pope will interface with President Donald Trump and his larger-than-life presence on the world scene? Some are saying this was a deliberate choice by the cardinals to, if you will, counter Trump, to temper American political influence. Do you buy that?
I could see that as part of the consideration, as part of the consideration as well, the whole financial crisis of the Vatican, because Americans and American business people were somewhat alienated by the things that Francis said, and how he will relate to Trump. I mean, if you wanted to be a conspiracy theorist, you would say that they planned the election for the very moment that Trump was announcing this very bigly deal in England, and he was blown off
out of the media.
Out of the media.
White smoke came up, and that really UK-US deal,
especially after having tweeted the image of himself as Pope.
But having an American from Chicago interface with Trump, there's something when Trump engages with Americans,
Yes.
there's something, or just people in the Anglosphere.
different.
He's very different from anywhere else.
Yes.
I just think the communication between he
I
and
agree with you
Pope
fully.
Leo will be
To
different.
speak with someone in one's own idiom, I think that Trump will understand him better. I think he will understand Trump. Trump thinks non-Americans are exotic. Maybe even his wife as well. But I don't think he communicates well with non-Americans, and I think he now has an opportunity to go to the world through this Pope if he can accept that filtering.
Yeah, and I keep thinking of John Paul and Reagan and that relationship. You know, they understood each other.
Well, that was a different thing altogether.
Yeah.
But a Chicago boy and a New York boy, this is going to be very interesting.
We'll see what happens. How do you think Pope Leo will look upon the economic teachings of the Church, particularly the free market aspect that you and JP2 championed?
Yes, I'm very hopeful in this regard because of the selection of the name, Pope Leo, because Pope Leo XIII, of course, inaugurated Catholic social teaching, which is neither left nor right, but was developed and promulgated at the time of the communist advance against workers and the family. And I think, and by the way, Pope Leo has no connections that I've been able to find with liberation theology, despite having been in Peru, which is where Gutierrez, the father of liberation theology, was from. Despite that, no connections with that. That has to be a very deliberate choice on his part.
Yeah. Tell me about what needs to be done by Pope Leo vis-a-vis this China-Vatican Pact, that secret pact that we've been reporting so extensively on. Of course, Cardinal Zen raised his voice in opposition to. I know you wrote a piece recently that Cardinal Zen should defect. I don't think he took your advice.
No, he didn't take my advice. I thought he'd be a new Manzenti,
But what should Pope Leo do about this Vatican-China Pact?
Now, his personality isn't the personality of the John Paul II. And he also isn't coming at it from the experience of John Paul with regard to fascism and communism. But I think his gentle, strong voice that identifies the problems not only in China, though primarily in China, but also in Nicaragua, in Venezuela, in Cuba, and other places where there is injustice, I think his voice can be added to that. With regard to the policy, the very fact that the Chinese government appointed 2 bishops during the interregnum at the death of the Pope, almost on the same day, tells you a lot about how seriously China takes that.
And an American looking at this and the way this is played out and the impact on the faith of the people there and people like Jimmy Lai, who is rotted in prison. What is it now? 8 years now?
No,
4 years?
It's 3. It's 3,
Moving
and
into
I
4.
just heard that President Trump is going to be involving that question in his negotiations with China.
Well, let us pray about that and pray that Pope Leo sees the light in that pact and maybe takes a different path.
I'm very hopeful here.
Me too. Father Robert Sirico,
Good to be
thank
with
you
you.
as always
Thank
for
you.
being here.